Today I will be demonstrating a visualizer for WSJT-X, the weak signal amateur radio communication tool. Hi, I'm Stephen Loomis, NØTTL, Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club member, creator of GridTracker.
Hi, I'm Andy, KE0UL, also an NCARC member, and I'll be trying to interview my son Stephen, N0TDL, and with a description and explanation of how his program, GridTracker, works in conjunction with WSJT-X. GridTracker is a program that is a supplement to WSJT-X, as I understand it.
That's correct.
That allows total visualization of what's going on any band at any time, in real time, of which cams are communicating using the FT8 mode or any of the digital modes, and displaying them on a screen in real time so that you can, well, Stephen can explain it better than I can. So the first question I'd like to ask is, how did this come about? WSJT-X is a fairly popular program, especially now with the new FT8 mode, which has virtually taken over the digital communications of ham radio. Explain to me what inspired you to create your program, GridTracker.
Well, I loved the program, WSJT-X. It's, it was a way for me, because I've only had my ham license now for 3.5 months. I let my original no-code tech license lapse in 2001. So I had been listening using software-defined radios, and I was listening to weak signals, discovered programs like WSJT-X, and realized that if I wanted to join in, I needed my ham license. So about 3.5 months ago, I got it. Installed WSJT-X and started working my QSOs. I've gotten a few, and I started marking them down on a piece of paper with a highlighter.
A little map and highlighter,
Yeah,
like I've done that, yes.
Right, ICOM provides a download, a PDF that you can print out. And so I had been using that, and it's, the corners are worn. And so I decided, this needs to be a program. I want to see in real time what's going on in WSJT-X, what call signs are being, what's going, what grids are out there.
Who's talking to whom? Who's calling CQ?
Who's calling CQ?
Who do you need for a contact? Which grid square might you need?
At one point, I was looking for a North Dakota grid square. And so I had to go look up which of the grid squares, and I'm looking at the piece of paper, and it was very taxing to go back and forth. And so much data is flowing through WSJT-X that it's hard to keep track of everything. So to visualize it allowed me to see, oh, there's a grid, I can go work it. And so that was why I created it, was so I could just see what was going on.
So your program, GridTracker, is essentially visual in its nature. The idea is to display it on a computer screen.
Right.
What you've worked in the past, what you need to work perhaps, or what other people are working, who they're talking to, and all this.
Yeah, exactly. And what happened was a side effect of seeing these grids and call signs showing up on a map was that the communication was occurring between two people. Now, I knew this was going on, but to actually all of a sudden see that this grid or this station was talking to this station, I could draw a path between the two and to visualize that. And the next thing you know, once I wrote that, I'm seeing people in Hawaii talk with people in New York. I'm seeing Japan talk to South America. And I realized I had something here and started adding more and more features. Like, like you were talking about, if I wanted to go, if I wanted to get a South Dakota grid square, I needed to create an alert system. I go enter the grid, create an alert, play a sound when somebody from South Dakota starts calling CQ.
So there are many features of your program that go beyond simple visualization. So you can get, you say you have a feature in there that will let you know, for example, what you're looking for specifically. What kind of different things can you set these notifications for?
Right, I can, let's say I wanted to listen for or be alerted when the author of WSJT-X starts broadcasting. I can enter his call sign. I can enter your call sign, KE0UL. Anytime you start broadcasting or you calling CQ, I can get alerted.
And this, anybody in the country using your program can see exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
if that's what
anybody
they
in
ask
the world
for.
using this program can
Right.
do it. It's not just confined
Right.
to us. Yeah. It also supports, DXCC. If I'm looking for, and DXCC is, our country code created by the ARRLL, a list of different country codes.
Yeah, that's built into your program.
Yes. And so if I am looking for DXCC from, let's say, Northern Ireland, I can enter that as an alert. If I'm looking for any contacts from South America or from the Sudan, I can set that up as an audio alert, a text-to-speech alert, or just a visual pop.
Sounds very versatile. So if you hear somebody calling CQ, you can answer them, or if somebody were calling you specifically,
Right.
the alarm would, or your notification system would
Yeah.
instantly let
Yeah.
you know.
Right, and one of the, an
And
alert-
in FTA, it's such a fast mode, you could hardly do that manually.
Right, there is so much data moving by so fast that, if I was, even if I was in the same room with WSJT-X and I wanted to know if somebody was calling me, the data is flown, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, just off the screen, and I'll never know. With GridTracker, I can enter my call sign as a QRZ alert and play a sound, or say, have the text-to-speech say who's calling me, or play a music file, for example.
What about logging? Is that incorporated in your program?
Yes, optionally, for every QSO that I'm involved, that I log from WSJT-X, I can write to disk in GridTracker. In addition to WSJT-X does this as well, I can make a backup copy. In addition, I can report to QRZ. And I'm adding more
It's from your program, you mean?
directly, yes. And I'm adding more as the project's only 6 weeks old, so I'm trying to add more as time progresses.
You have amazing functionality in such a short period.
Well, thank you. So, I support reporting of logs and downloading of logs. You can actually tell GridTracker when it opens up to download your logbook of the world logbook, your QRZ logbook, and a few others.
And so this you download the older logs that you have, or your latest logs, and GridTracker displays them on a screen again, so that you can see in real time what you need, say, in a way of a missing grid square that you don't have yet, missing country perhaps, or a DXCC entry that you need.
Exactly, and all visually. So you can also, when you load this data, you can lock it down so that when new traffic comes in through WSJT-X, as it does, any of your worked grid squares, any of your confirmed grid squares won't disappear. So you'll have a visual representation at all times of what you need to
What
get.
you need, what you've had.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'd like to see this actually operating. So this is the visual presentation of GridTracker. What are we seeing here?
Well, what we're seeing here is live communication from WSJT-X. And as you can see here, these are all the messages coming in. As I get one, or as GridTracker gets one, being a call sign, a grid square, a CQ designator, with that information, if I know where they are, I can represent it here on the map. The more I know about a station means I can draw paths. So an example, here we have somebody trying to communicate, let's see, QSOE is communicating with HP1RY.
So what we're seeing here is real time, what's happening on the 20-meter band at the moment with WJST-X and FT8 mode. Is that right?
That's correct. And GridTracker, it listens to all that information coming in and displays it with known information. So what we see here is, the grid square, FN42, contains all this information that's been collected over the past, 4 or 5 minutes.
So you just move the mouse cursor over to the grid square and you can see everything how does that work?
Yes, as messages come in, we collect statistics, and when you mouse over a grid square, in this case, the grid square is 42 minutes old and contains all the call signs and the mode and the signal reports and the last messages received.
Now, what is it we're seeing here? I see a lot of grid squares on the east coast of the United States. What exactly does this show?
Basically, I am showing all communication, all stations that I can hear with WSJT-X. This is great. Right now, someone is trying to contact or had just sent CQJA, their call sign in grid square, CQJA N2 MWX FM29, and he's seeking Japan.
So this just flashed on the screen, this
Just now, yes.
two-way communication, and it shows it visually, the two stations and the geodesic line between the two.
Right, but in this case, this is not communication between two sources. This is communication between, or someone seeking communication in Japan. They're looking for a contact there. So what I turned off there was alerts. We'll get into that in a minute.
So as you click on a grid square,
And-
what information do you pick up from?
Well, with simply mousing over a grid square shows you, since the start of the program, all grid square, all stations for that particular grid square, and their last messages received, and what time that they occurred. So, in the case of, let's look up here in Maine, let's zoom in. KE8KW was heard 11 seconds ago, and he was calling CQ.
So you had the opportunity to contact him.
Right, now I know I can go over to WSJT-X and find his call sign and initiate a QSO. Also, we get to see traffic between sites. In this case, we're seeing a communication, a QSO, from FN31 grid square to the Pacific Northwest at CN88. A request was sent, or not a request, but a call from, let's see, K7RL KG28AF with grid square FN31 is seeking K7RL, who just called CQ. So hopefully we'll see a communication come back if he heard them. If the station K7RL heard KG2AF, then we'll see a flight path go the other direction.
I noticed another flight path did occur down toward just south of Cuba. This is real time happening on the 20-meter band right now. And what I find unusual is, not unusual, but rather revealing, the fact that we can essentially see the propagation characteristics of the entire United States on that. As you zoom in there, the East Coast seems to be alive. No signals coming from the central or west.
You're correct, yes. It's a great observation.
I can't explain why, but that is unusual.
What the great thing about this program is these sort of things are presenting themselves visually that you wouldn't otherwise see with just running WSJT-X by itself.
No way at all, right.
So one of the options, what you see here is the gray line. This is the shadow of the sun, and as it moves across the propagation characteristics, the amount of grid squares we see will start to change. We'll be more populated.
That would be especially true on 40 meters as we get closer to nightfall.
Right, hopefully we won't be here that long. So down here at EL15, we see a station calling CQDX, but he's from the United States, so we wouldn't want to contact him. But other stations calling CQDX could be calling from outside of our DXEC, and we can create an alert on that. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to create an alert on all CQ designators. Hopefully, as we record this, someone will call CQDX from outside of the United States, and we'll see our map center on that caller. As we see here, 2 stations are in a QSO. As you can see, there's 2 arrows pointing in either direction from the path. WW1I is in communication with K7ZYV. Yeah. So we're seeing live traffic.
What I'd like to see now is one of your notification selections. Say somebody were to be calling your call sign. How would you set up a notification for that?
Oh, you would go to the alert settings, which is the little exclamation point here, and then go to QRZ, which is someone calling you, and it's pre-populates your value, your call sign.
And you enter your call sign in that square.
Yeah, well actually you don't get to enter it. It's pre-filled for you. It's provided by WSJT-X. And then you select your notification type. It can be text to speech, a media file, or visual pop-up. So let's go ahead and pick a media file, and then you select it. It gives you a list of files, and you pick one, and now that's associated, and we hit add. So now anybody calling me, calling N0TTL, will play that sound file.
So I'd like to ask about the logging features here. Apparently, this will integrate with QRZ log files and LoTW?
That's right. You can load log files from disk, PSKReporter, QRZ.com, Logbook of the World, and Club Log, if you have accounts with those. In this case, I have QRZ ready to go. So yes, we support multiple log services, and there's more to come. Here is QRZ that I've already pre-configured. I'm going to go ahead and lock down my QSLs, and I'll explain this in a second. So we're downloading now from QRZ.com my log file. Represented here are my yellow squares, which are my QSO, and my red squares, which are QSL squares, confirmed. Now, when I mentioned that I've locked down QSL, what that means is when I load in the log file, I have told GridTracker to lock down this grid from changing color or disappearing.
So you can see at a glance all the stations you've worked in with all of your different types of logs that you may have online or saved on your own computer.
That's correct. So now that I have loaded my log file, the traffic I am seeing, since I've locked down my QSL grid squares, only traffic that I haven't had a confirmed contact with will be changing color or updating. Paths between known call signs will continue, but as far as any somebody calling CQ from a grid square I've already worked won't show up now. This allows me, I am currently seeking Rhode Island, but there's no activity yet, but this will allow me to quickly see if it were to come in, the grid square would change color and I would go initiate a QSO.
What new features haven't you explained yet that's already been incorporated in what you have here?
So there's a lot of features we haven't covered. We have the ability to pop out or look at a particular grid square in detail. So if I like a grid square for its content, I can shift right click on it and it will pop out and give me more information. If I want to learn more about a particular call sign, those being in the United States, I can click on their call sign and it pops out info attained from the FCC records.
Can you zoom in on a grid square and get details from it?
You can. You can zoom in on any grid square and any information we have about it will be displayed on a tooltip. One of the things that's hard, I can't move the mouse, but we'll see here that in this case, grid square EN90 is in the United States, and it contains records from 5 stations, also with their call signs being recognized from the United States.
Now, are these stations that you've worked, or?
In this case, I have worked all of these stations and have confirmed with 4 of them. Mm-hmm. One of the interesting features, and this is really handy for people who use SDRs who aren't amateur ticket holders, is the ability to load activity from PSKReporter. Many people use WSJT-X in listen-only mode and report their traffic to PSKReporter. So if you've ever been to PSKReporter.info, there's many stations that are listening, many stations that are broadcasting. We can pull in that list, and that'll do that now. This is the last 24 hours of traffic that I heard with my station. And all the blue squares are grids that I heard, and all the yellow with the red squares are stations that heard me. Yeah.
So you've pulled in from PSKReporter. Are there other sources of external loggings or reception reports that you can bring in besides PSKReporter?
At this time, we can load only log files from QRZ, Logbook of the World, and ClubLog, and these are log entries or QSOs that you've already entered. As far as external data beyond PSKReporter, there is just the log files. So another fancy mode this is also handy for people who are interested in mapping. You can change to pin mode, and instead of grids, and you can also change your width. So grids are typically inside WSJT-X referred to as a 4 wide. That is, there's 2 letters and 2 numbers composing your grid square. Many stations, especially in the PSKReporter world, report in 6 wide. That is 2 letters, 2 numbers, 2 small letters, and the detail, the size of the grid becomes smaller. And I'll show that here in a smaller grid and load PSKReporter. So I'll zoom in. So these are the smaller grids, in this case FM04MP. Wow, it's really hard. Let me zoom in further. So this is a 6 wide Maidenhead grid square. Now I can change to pin mode, and we get a nice pin. If I back out, we can see all the activity for the last 24 hours represented with pins.
So those of us in Fort Collins, for example, can look up DN70LK and see what's been happening locally.
Exactly. Let's see here. Let's see what happened in DM70LK. Well, there's LM. Oh, that's just DN70. So the only traffic we heard from Fort Collins as far as a 6 wide was DN70LM, and that was AD0OB, which I believe is the Jerry Roop video on WSJT-X. You should check it out.
So for those who are using WSJT-X, how do they get your program, GridTracker, incorporated?
It's real easy. You go to, and I'll open it up here, tag Loomis.
Can you spell that?
Tango Alpha Golf Lima Oscar Oscar Mike India Sierra.com. As a side note, you can also go to N0TTL mycallsign.com. It takes you to the same place. And you go to downloads and pick your flavor. If you have Windows, you have a Macintosh, or if you Linux. Currently for Linux, I only support the Debian releases like Ubuntu and Debian. Also, we have a quick start guide written by a very cool friend of mine, Henry Forte, N2VFL, where he goes into great detail on explaining how to use GridTracker. So if it wasn't covered here in this video, the document will definitely cover it. Thank you for watching our video. You can reach me at tag.loomis@gmail.com. 73.
This presentation was brought to you by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. For more information, visit our website, ncarc.net. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.